Welcome to the Dr. Ed Show. I'm obviously not Dr. Ed. We're turning the tables tonight, or today. We're going to interview Dr. Edmund Sulkowski. Going to be a guest on your own show.
Yeah, how about that?
Very exciting. First of all, I wanted to thank you for 20 years you've been doing the shows with
giving
us.
Me the chills, Ryan.
I think it's been about 250 episodes or so,
No
something
kidding.
like that. And I was thinking, 20 years ago, there was no iPhone yet. Facebook was still on college campuses. I think Netflix was sending DVDs to people's homes still. I think Tesla existed, but there was no car yet. There was no Google Chrome. I mean, lots of things happened in 20 years. What are the things that maybe have either excited or disappointed you kind of about the last, looking back over the last 2 decades of things that...
Wow, that's
big question. Sorry.
That's a loaded question. I think that technology is extraordinary, and I was always an early adapter. Before I went to medical school, I actually did computer programming and used computers a lot in the job that I had. And I remember getting my first Atari machine, and I taught myself DOS, actually, if most people don't even know what that is. And it was a keyboard hooked up to a TV, and so I was always an early adapter. I had the first iPhone, Ryan, and I stood in line for 6 hours to get it, and I won't stand in line for anything. But I did for that iPhone, and I absolutely loved it. I've sort of turned the tables on a lot of this stuff now because it's quite aggravating sometimes, and I'm sure you realize that yourself with everything you do, because everything you do has some technological feature to it. And what I hate the most about it at all is there's no more personal communication. Everything's an app. Everything you do is tap this, click on this, and if there's an issue, there's no resolve to it. Right. So it's interesting. When I moved back from Arizona, my house is all Wi-Fi'd everything, and including my light switches. And I can sit here in this studio and pick up my phone and control every light in my house when it works.
Right.
so that's what frustrates me the most, and to the point right now where I don't even want to deal with it. So
and right now, as we're taping this, the hurricane issues going on down in the south, and we see just the devastation that the lack of electricity. As soon as electricity goes out, people suddenly, reappreciate how important electricity is to everything, because none of the technology is going to run if there's no.
Exactly. And then you sit there and everything you're doing is constantly plugging something in. Something has to be recharged.
Right.
And you don't realize the time it takes, or you'll go online and you go to a certain site and it just sits there. You get this little spinning wheel and you're like, okay, come on now.
Right.
When you had a book in your hand, and I read a book all the time, I have books everywhere, you have a page you can look and you can easily go back to. Sometimes you search something on the internet and you go to look for it and it's not there. You're just like, I saw it.
Right.
Right. And then I got a million photos on my phone, because I'm always shooting something or taking a picture of something, and then I got to search to find it. So maybe, I haven't adapted to putting them in folders, but all that's time consuming.
Right.
Let alone having the understanding of how to do it. And I don't think anything's simple anymore.
No, not at all. So just as we're talking about 20 years, I'll just go back real quick. And I know people have seen you for hours and hours and hours on our shows, but maybe can you just give a little brief history of yourself and how you came to doing shows with us in the early days?
It's kind of interesting. So I had a traditional medical background, education, and really bought into it pretty heavily, and thought that was the only way until I got sick. And when I had multiple surgeries and was pretty much non-functional and basically told to go home and get my first order, and that I wasn't expected to be around, I realized that the training I had is extraordinary and the medical profession is extraordinary, but they don't have all the answers. And I started to look into how these answers look into modalities to try to support my body to try to survive, and they worked. Yeah, and it really didn't hit me until like 5 years later when I went into, I was seeing physicians, well, one physician I was seeing 4 times a month, 3 times a month, another one twice a month, another one about every 3 weeks for 5 years. And I wasn't listening to them, but they were doing blood work and doing all these things. And I walked into my one physician's office, and this was 5 years later, and he said to me, for the first time in 5 years, I think you're going to be around. And I was like, whoa, that was
Wow.
like you know, he had never said anything to me before, but you know, it was kind of like hitting a wall all of a sudden. And maybe I didn't even realize how sick I had been.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, but the interesting thing he said was, I did nothing for you, you did it yourself. And it was supplying my body with the nutrients it needed, even though I had a problem because I had lost half of my small intestine, that I didn't have the ability to really take that stuff in, but I was getting it in. So people, you know, of course, were always asking me stuff, and then I started getting on a lecture circuit talking about, and I don't have an education in nutrition,
Mm-hmm.
but I have, like the old Abraham Lincoln education, you know. I actually lived it.
Right.
And I started applying it to my dogs. And I started actually doing a lot of lecturing at pet shows and so forth, because just by word of mouth, people would say, hey, we saw you give this lecture or write this article or whatever. So I was writing articles and giving lectures all over the country, Hawaii, Michigan, Florida, you name it. I was being called to lecture. And then somebody said, you know, you should be on the Peters Township Network talking about this stuff. And that's kind of how that happened. And I think our first show was called, Let's Talk Healthy Pets.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, and interesting enough, that was 20 long years ago. And I thought I'd do 1 show or 2 shows and be done. So that's kind of how we got started. And then the name of the show's changed over a few years, and the focus kind of changed.
Sure.
As my focus did. So.
Well, then starting with the beginning, I know obviously your interest in the health and well-being of pets is a passion of yours. I know that getting access to that stuff is easier now. I know my wife gets so excited when the Chewy boxes arrive and stuff like that. But I know a lot of your concern was going into pet food. Also, I mean, just the safety of toys or all those things. Have things gotten better? Have the big companies paid more attention to stuff, do you think?
I think some things have improved, and I think the suppliers are a little more cautious about what they're selling. If you look at like food manufacturing, and I can remember, I wrote an article that actually I had an article written about me in the Pittsburgh Press and the Washington Observer, I think it was, within a 6-month period. And the article was really not about pets or about pet food or about pet supplementation. It was about kind of my story and what had happened and how I got to where I was. But in the article, I had mentioned that I had started to apply. I had aging dogs that I had rescued, and I was still following the model of going to the veterinarian and saying, okay, what pill do you have, or what injection do you have, or what surgery do you have? And I thought, well, if all this worked for me, why would it work for my dogs? And it did, you know. So, but in the article, I just made a comment that I don't buy processed food, manufactured food. I make my own food, and one of the reasons is because dogs aren't supposed to eat corn, wheat, grain. They're carnivores.
Right.
Well, I then was under attack by the Manufacturers Association for pet food. I mean, it wasn't even 30 days later.
Wow.
And you know, he's just a dentist. We're just a dentist in this article, and what does he know about, you know, any of this stuff? Well, it doesn't take a rocket science to know about it. You know, a dog has teeth that are only meant for tearing. a dog has a Tesla track only meant for processing animal products, and I don't mean junk animal products, I mean real animal products, you know, flesh. They shouldn't be eating corn. You never see a dog attack a ear of corn or a cornfield.
It'd be dangerous at picnics.
Yeah, exactly. You know, they might like a piece of watermelon, some of them, or a piece of apple. I had a dog that loved apple. I gave her a little bit of apple. It's not going to hurt her, hurt her, but that's not their main source of nutrition. But the industry, like all these industries out there, they have these lobbyists, and they actually pay companies, and that's how I found out how this article was, that I was being attacked by. They pay companies to monitor the airways, monitor the written press, and if anything is said negative against their industry, they do a counterattack. And I think we saw a lot of that during COVID. Mm-hmm. You know, you weren't allowed, even as a medical professional, I wasn't allowed to say something. Of course, me being me, I said it anyway, but you have this problem. The thing that I noticed the most, the people that really are aware and are becoming more aware are paying attention to it. So they're looking for products that don't have chemicals on them, or that's actually supplying a majority of the protein that the animal needs. So that's probably the biggest thing that I've seen.
Yeah, well, and obviously the access to information for people, like you're saying, they can become aware if if they choose to.
Yeah, and that's a little tricky too. There's a lot of stuff on the internet, and you have to have discernment to know what is right and what isn't. Sure. And sometimes, you put something in there, and I'm speaking to the choir here, right? you get what they want you to see first before you get to really the meat of the product.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
We do have accessibility, although I've noticed in the last 3 and so years, there's been suppression of that too. And honestly, since COVID, it seems like it's been even more suppressed. So, but education is important, right? And the more aware you are, the better you have an ability to have that discernment to make the proper choices.
Well, you mentioned COVID. I'm curious, from your perspective, certainly we're in a high school. I should have mentioned too that 20 years ago, none of your crew were alive. Your student crew, right? 20 years ago. It's a little scary.
Really, huh?
But we've seen certainly some educational loss from COVID and stuff like that. But I'm just thinking, even just in terms of health and stuff, that people they couldn't go to their doctors, their dentists, their therapists, whatever, as often. I mean, certainly telemedicine now has become a big thing where people don't have to necessarily go all the time to see them. But we're seeing the short-term concerns. Is there any long-term things that you're worried about, just as a health professional or just in general? From COVID.
Well, I have to say, first of all, the impression that only happened in certain states, Pennsylvania being one of them. And basically what everybody designates as blue states, although I don't believe Pennsylvania is a blue state. We had probably, and I've said this on my radio show, one of the worst governors ever at that time. Mm-hmm. And he locked down dental offices. Well, I'm going to say this, and I've said it 100 times. Your oral health is your overall health. If you have bad oral condition, you have systemic health problems. Yeah. Disease starts here and it ends here. And that was the first thing they shut down. You had no access. So when we finally got to the point where we could open the office again, people that had no caries had caries. People that had no gum disease had gum disease. Caries is tooth decay. People that had some tooth decay that wasn't treated now needed root canals or extractions. All because they locked down the dental office. And they put this oppression of fear. It was all fear-based on a virus that was, you can go into the virus about being man-made, not man-made. It's been proven to be man-made. It was a manipulated virus. Origins were proven. It's all out there now. It was denied when the rumors were going out, but it's all been proven. But that COVID virus has been around for hundreds of years.
I always thought it was funny. They made a big deal. You'd look at the back of a Lysol can, and it was like, attacks the coronavirus, and this was years and years and years before we thought of what the coronavirus is. Sorry.
Exactly. And then we were instructed to wear masks. Well, I've worn a mask my whole professional career.
Sure.
Gloves too.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't protect you from anything. Really doesn't protect me from anything. I wear a mask so I don't dribble on you. That's basically it. You know. We went from wearing no masks to wearing a mask to wearing a stocking to wearing a bandana to wearing 3 masks. I think that was the last recommendation from Dr. Fauci, or as who I call Dr. Falsey. But masks didn't do anything. N95 mask, which is like the Cadillac of masks. Right. The old saying, the Cadillac's the Rolls Royce of masks. Doesn't prevent asbestos fibers from going in and out, and the coronavirus is 10 times smaller than an asbestos fiber. So how is it preventing the? And then there was the social distancing. Well, that's social suppression. They established, Dr. Fauci established it at 6 feet. Canada, 6.5 feet. 6.5,
So
6 feet 5
then.
inches. Germany, 2 feet 5 inches. Every country had a different Well, either the virus projects itself out 10 feet or 2 feet or 1 foot or not at all, or, does it do it differently in Canada than it does it in the United States than it does it in Germany? No. Right. It was just baloney. Yet you had people going to the grocery store, walking down one aisle one way in the aisle, walking the other way out, being yelled at because your mask was a little bit below your nose. I still see people driving in their car by themselves wearing a mask. Mm-hmm. Give me a break. It's beyond silly. So, I don't know if that answers your question or not.
Sure,
but COVID was a problem, and the way it was handled was a problem, and the way it's still being handled is a problem. And they're still doing the same thing. Now they're talking about West Nile virus and monkeypox, and there's another one they're talking about. So it's like ridiculous. These things are all about. It's about supporting your immune system, about all the shows we've done over the years that we've talked about. Sure. Which I think you can go back. How far can you go back? Let me ask you a question. How far can you go back?
They're all
there.
Online, I think. I think we started uploading by then, but I have to go back and check. But at least the vast majority of them.
So everybody gets to watch me age over on TV, huh? Cool. I'm glad I'm aging. I almost didn't.
So obviously, your profession is dentistry. Is there? So I feel like every time I go to the dentist, they're telling me I'm doing. There's something a little bit different that I'm doing wrong. As far as you need to push down a little more on the gum, whatever. Is there just general advice you can just give to people to say these are the things that you really need to watch for or take care of, as far as because I've always heard the same thing. Your teeth are the gateway to your body as far as everything goes, as far as your health goes.
Yes, and it's absolutely 100% true. So you have teeth that are in gum and bone, really bone hold your teeth. You have ligaments attached to the roots of the teeth, and they're holding your teeth in place. So if you think about it, if you don't have teeth, or you have bad oral condition, bad teeth, you're not chewing your food, so you're not breaking your food down to start your digestive process going, so you end up with digestive problems, gut problems, inability to break down the nutrition. There's that whole cascade that can happen there. So that's one issue. The second issue is those blood vessels in your gums are right at the surface. So everything that's there is getting picked up in your bloodstream and being carried. So it has to be processed by your liver, has to be processed by your kidney. It can end up in your brain. You're producing bacteria all the time, and most of that bacteria is good. We call it, I don't usually like those terms, Ryan, good bacteria, bad bacteria, but just for simplicity's sake, we have them. Some of them help with digestion. Some of them are necessary for your immune system. Some of them produce enzymes. Some of them produce something called nitric oxide. They're all necessary. Along come some of the bad ones, the pathogenic ones, but the good ones actually keep the pathogenic ones in check. Thing about it is, good ones are easy to destroy and kill. Pathogenic ones are not. So when you doing things that kill the good ones, the bad ones become a little more powerful. So everybody wants to, like during COVID, sterilize your hands, sterilize your hands. Well, I know you've heard me say this before. That's not what you do. You just keep them, the count. It's more of a mechanical debridement. So I wash my hands. I mean, I probably have the softest nails in the world because I'm washing my hands so much during the day in practice. But I don't use a heavy antiseptic soap because you want to have bacteria to keep the good bacteria, to keep the bad bacteria, to keep the fungus in check. But I constantly scrubbing them to reduce the count. You can't live in a sterile environment. You would die if you were sterile. And no operating room, no dental office is sterile. It's just impossible for it to be that phase. You're just keeping those numbers down. So this mechanical debridement does that. Does the same thing for your oral cavity. So you have a toothbrush, which if you're using a manual toothbrush, you throw it away every 3 months at the minimum. And if you think about it, it's sitting in your bathroom. That's generally where you brush your teeth. And you have a toilet in that bathroom. Every time you flush that toilet, it aerates bacteria, right? Well, where's it ending up? On that toothbrush.
On a toothbrush.
So I like to suggest to people that they soak their toothbrush in hydrogen peroxide to keep it clean and things like that. But throw the darn thing away. They're cheap. Even if you have an electric toothbrush, which I highly recommend, those heads that are replaceable, and they're not that expensive. So, and especially if the bristles are starting to fray, you want to get rid of them because they can damage your gums. But it's that mechanical debridement. It isn't the fluoride. You know, there's a big controversy about fluoride. I think that's an important controversy because fluoride is actually the second most toxic substance you can put in your body next to arsenic.
Wow.
It has some positive things. It does create some strength in your enamel. It does help bone develop. I mean, you know, you can get it naturally. The fluoride that's in toothpaste and mouthwash is actually synthetic fluoride produced from the cleaning stacks of aluminum plants. So that's waste, toxic waste, and it's hauled away in a truck that says toxic waste on it, danger. Yet they refine it and say, drink it in our water supply and brush your teeth with it. As a licensed practitioner in the state of Pennsylvania, I have to tout that. But if you ask me what I do, I don't use it. But fluoride, that's that mechanical debridement that keeps these colonies of bacteria. We have something called a biome that lives in our body. We need it. It's how we are mostly bacteria, virus, fungi. They need to be in balance. So you just reduce the numbers. So I'm not big on mouthwash. But if you see stuff building up on your teeth, we have soft stuff called plaque, or hard stuff called calculus or tartar. I always call it calculus because calculus was tough in school. But that stuff is a petri dish of disease that's staying there, that's being absorbed in your bloodstream, going to your heart, your liver, your kidneys, every organ, every cell, causing dysfunction and disease. And it's so critical that we've known for years and years that there was a certain bacteria that was in your mouth associated with heart disease. Then we learned there was a bacteria associated from your mouth to your kidney, now your liver. Well, it's gone even worse than that. We know there's a certain bacteria that's associated with Alzheimer's and the bacteria in your mouth and cancers of your large intestine. So if you're keeping those numbers in check, you're reducing your likelihood of systemic problem as the ones that I've mentioned. So that's how important it is. So brushing and how you brushed. So I'll see patients that brush, you see it on TV, right? You can do that on your biting surfaces, but not at your gum line. That causes problems in your gum line. And I look in somebody's mouth and I'll see right away, you're going like this. Yeah, I think I am. You brush the way your teeth grow. Your bottom teeth grow up, you brush up. Top teeth grow down, you brush down. Or you do what I do, go in circles. The biggest area for that buildup of that petri dish is on the inside of your lower teeth. or on these back molars, because they're really tough to get to. So you have to make sure you're angling your brush and brushing. And then the frequency of brushing is important. So, you say like you brush twice a day. Well, some people brush in the morning and only once a day. So they get up and they brush their teeth and then they start the eating process. Well, what's the point? So you eat and brush, not brush and eat.
Right.
And then when you go to bed at night, you're going into sleep. You're going into hibernation mode. So your body's shutting down. It's not producing saliva, which naturally rinses your mouth and your teeth. You're going into that dehydration mode where your mouth dries out, and that's a perfect candidate for this buildup. So when is the most important time to brush your teeth? Right before you go to bed. So, and you want to integrate technology. There are wonderful toothbrushes out there that actually use AI now. And I like AI, and I'm scared of AI. But it actually tells you whether you're not pressing hard enough, or you're pressing too hard, you're not using it long enough in a certain area. It actually tells you that on the brush. And I have one of those. I look forward to brushing my teeth every day. So taking care of that tissue in your mouth and your teeth, extremely critical. Your tongue as well. Brushing your tongue, things grow on your tongue. And if you're not cleaning your tongue, it can be disgusting, But one of the biggest issues I have with people, I'll say, do you floss? Every once in a while. Well, a toothbrush doesn't get in between those teeth. And so you start with tooth decay there, or build up in between there. So if you're not flossing every day, you only have to do it once a day before you go to bed. If you're not flossing, you're setting yourself up for an issue. And then how you floss is important. And media is wonderful. I think shows on this channel send out nice messages, good information. You don't always have to agree with it, but it just gets you to think, gets you to investigate, and I think that's what we try to do. But you'll see movies, commercials, where they take a floss and they go, like they're cutting wood. That's not how you floss. You put that floss down, you wrap it around the tooth on each side, then pull it up. That's how you floss. You're damaging your gums when you do that. So this oral cavity is the basis, I think, of longevity, actually. When I see an elderly patient in their 90s and they're vibrant, they have their teeth and they have good gums. And I see sick people that are in their 40s and 50s and that condition is not like that. They have poor oral health condition. So I think there's a big relationship to longevity and overall well-being right here.
Great. Perfect way to end. Thank you again for 20 years. Maybe
thank you. Thank you guys.
I'll come back 20 years from now.
20 years, we'll still be here in a wheelchair. No.
But thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right. Thanks. I'm Ryan Boni, hosting and filling in for Dr. Ed on the Dr. Ed Show. Thank you for watching.